Do you think ignoring a narcissist will make them go away? That if you don't respond, don't reply, don't leave a trace, they'll get bored and give up? The truth is the complete opposite. When you stop playing their game, it's not the end. It's when the real, silent war begins. Narcissists don't thrive on love, they survive on control. They don't want your heart, they want your reaction. That's how they know they still matter. And when you choose silence, not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong and awake enough to walk away, you're doing the one thing they fear most. You're taking back your power, but they won't surrender. They'll try to come back. Through vague messages, familiar yet distant gestures, manipulative tricks that make you question yourself and feel guilty for pulling away. Don't fall for it. Your silence is not an invitation, it's a sword. And the moment you stop orbiting around them, the illusion of their false universe begins to crumble piece by piece. In today's video, we're pulling back the mask, diving deep into the narcissist's mind to understand what truly terrifies them when you stop giving them attention. If you've ever felt small, easily manipulated, or stuck in a relationship where control disguised itself as love, then this video is for you. Claire was a woman who spent 3 years in a relationship that looked perfect on the outside. He smiled in public, said all the right words, charmed everyone around him. But behind closed doors, Claire was no longer herself. She lived like a shadow, constantly apologizing for things that weren't her fault, constantly reading his facial expressions to avoid unpredictable bursts of anger. And when she finally ran out of strength and trust, she didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't explain, she just went silent. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of a final truth. Ironically, for the narcissist, that silence was not the end, it was the ultimate threat. Her silence triggered a hunger for control that had been quietly simmering beneath the surface, because narcissists are not whole beings. They can't exist independently. They need constant feedback to feel real. Any kind of validation, whether praise or pushback, is fuel for their ego. When you pull away, you don't make them disappear, you make them furious because they've lost their grip on you. And that's when they become the most dangerous. They might play the victim, seeking your sympathy. They might flaunt a new relationship to provoke you. They might even dig into old memories you once treasured, hoping to awaken your guilt or nostalgia. But make no mistake, none of it is about love. It's about reclaiming control. To understand why narcissists don't just walk away when you go silent, you must look directly into the fractured psychology behind their mask. And the first thing you need to know is this: a narcissist has no stable sense of self. They live through a false self-image, constructed entirely by external validation, especially yours. According to Dr. Craig Malkin, a Harvard psychologist and author of Rethinking Narcissism, narcissists suffer from a core emptiness, a psychological void they must fill every single day with attention, admiration, and emotional reactions from others. They don't know who they are without someone constantly affirming their worth. And that's exactly why your silence is their greatest nightmare. You might think that not texting, not calling, not saying anything at all would help them move on, but no, it does the opposite. It sends them into an internal panic. Narcissists can't stand being alone with themselves. Without someone reflecting their emotions back to them like a mirror, they don't know how to regulate their inner world. Every moment without attention is a brutal reminder that they are empty and unneeded, and for them, that's worse than death. A narcissist may appear confident, charming, funny, even emotionally expressive, but don't be fooled. It's a mask. Beneath it lies an emotionally abandoned child who never learned how to self-soothe and so survives by manipulating the emotions of others. When you cut off that emotional supply, they lose their compass. And it's in that very moment that their true nature is exposed. Rage, shame, guilt-tripping, or even sweet manipulation. All of it aimed at regaining control. They don't love you. They love the way you made them feel about themselves. And when you stop doing that, they're not in pain because they lost you. They're in pain because they lost the reflection they relied on to survive. This is emotional dependency disguised as love. So if you've ever felt cruel for not responding, if you've ever felt guilty for abandoning them when they needed you the most, remember this: narcissists don't need you to heal. They need you to maintain their illusion, and you are no longer living to uphold that illusion. What should you do when faced with their suppressed rage? First, remember, a narcissist's silence doesn't mean they've let go. It's the quiet before the storm. It's how they watch from the shadows, waiting for you to stumble in your solitude so they can return as the so-called savior. Don't give them that satisfaction. Don't reply. Keep your silence not as a compromise, but as a declaration. Then use that silence to rebuild yourself. Not the version of you they wanted, but the real you. The one who once had dreams, who laughed freely, who lived without being tied to another's control. And finally, the most important part, don't go back out of guilt. Someone who truly loves you would never make you feel bad for setting boundaries. If they're doing everything to pull you back into the same toxic cycle, then make no mistake, you're not walking away from love. You're walking away from abuse. You didn't leave them because you stopped loving them. You left because for the first time in your life, you finally began learning how to love yourself. And your silence, if you hold it with strength and intention, is not an invitation for them to return. It's your final, unshakable declaration: I have chosen freedom, and I will never return to being someone's prisoner again. But don't be mistaken. Just because you walked away doesn't mean it's over. In fact, that's when it truly begins. Not for you, but for them. Because for the narcissist, losing control is never an option. And when you cut off the supply that once fueled their ego, you unknowingly awaken their deepest fear, the fear of being forgotten. So what happens next? What do they do when you stop playing by their script? They come back, but not because they love you, because they need you. They need you to feel valuable again. They need you to cover up the inner void they're too terrified to face. At first, they may return with a familiar face, charming, gentle, saying all the things you once longed to hear. They'll apologize, talk about loneliness, and reminisce about the beautiful memories. And you'll feel conflicted, because a part of you, the soft, forgiving part, still remembers the good. But if the gentle approach doesn't work, they'll switch tactics instantly. Coldness replaces charm, criticism replaces vulnerability, manipulation replaces apology. They'll say things to make you feel guilty for leaving. They might smear your name to others, post vague messages on social media, or even use a new partner as a visual weapon, just to show you they're doing better without you. None of this is about healing. It's about manipulating you again. And here's the dangerous part. They don't give up. A narcissist doesn't accept failure. They don't tolerate silence. So, if you're not mentally prepared, you could easily fall back into their trap. Not because they force you, but because they know how to pull the right emotional strings. But this time, you're not the same person. You've seen the face behind the mask. And if you stand your ground, you'll never step back onto that stage again. Maybe now you're wondering, what if they come back looking different? What if they act new, softer, more sincere? How will I know it's just another well-crafted trap? That question isn't just valid, it's vital. Because what makes a narcissist dangerous isn't just what they do, it's how easily they morph to fit whatever role gives them power. They withdraw, then return. They beg, then blame. They love bomb, then guilt trip. The cycle never ends. Unless you are the one who ends it. So how do you spot their subtle traps? First, they begin to reappear in your life in seemingly random but carefully calculated ways. Maybe they don't text you directly, but suddenly they're watching your stories, liking an old post, or commenting in spaces they know you frequent. Don't think it's coincidence. For narcissists, every move is designed to send a message. I'm still here. I still have power. Second, they use others as messengers. They may not approach you directly. Instead, a mutual friend casually mentions their name. Maybe you hear they miss you, or they've changed, or wish they could fix things. All of it is emotional bait, and you owe no reply because every reaction, even the smallest one, tells them the door is still open. Third, they'll try to reignite the good memories. They might share a song you once loved, post a photo that reminds you of your past together, or send a cryptic message, something strangely familiar that only the two of you would understand. This isn't some emotional coincidence. It's a calculated tactic aimed directly at your most vulnerable spot, nostalgia. Fourth, they'll play the public victim while subtly painting you as the one who hurt them. They'll tell half-truths and twisted stories to others, portraying themselves as someone who's trying to recover after being abandoned. The goal isn't just to make you feel guilty. It's to push you to speak, to react, to come back and explain yourself. And finally, they'll test you to see if you're still emotionally accessible. A casual text, a vague question, a harmless good night, good answer, because every response, even the smallest one, signals to them that the door isn't fully closed, and worse, it's an invitation for them to walk right back in and reclaim emotional territory they once controlled. It doesn't matter if they have someone new. It doesn't matter if it's been 5 years, 10 years, or a lifetime since you walked away. Never assume they've forgotten you. In a healthy person, time heals wounds, but for a narcissist, time doesn't heal. It stores strategy. They don't let go of easy supply. You once gave them power. You once shaped your emotions around them, and in their mind, that locked in a permanent place they believe they can access at any time. They may disappear for years. They may return with a picture-perfect life, a new partner, a new image. They may seem like a completely different person, wiser, calmer, more mature. But deep down, they still remember you as an old file they can reopen when needed. And when the emptiness creeps back in, when the new person stops reacting the way they want, when their ego takes another hit, they'll come back, not because they love you, but because they need someone who once loved them just enough to be easily manipulated again. And when they do come back, they won't say, "I need control over you." They'll say, "I never stopped loving you." They'll use love as a reason, a shield, a weapon, but stay sharp. What they call love is nothing more than a chain disguised with emotional ribbon, and if you let them pull you back in, you're not starting fresh, you're continuing from the exact point where you were last broken, and this time, the cost may be even higher. What makes the narcissist's love tactic so dangerous is that it doesn't arrive like an attack. It comes wrapped in memory. It reminds you of what you had, or more accurately, what you thought you had. A familiar song, an old phrase, a message that says, "Just checking in." Every move is calculated to stir the past, to soften the armor you spent years building. They don't need you to come running back immediately. They just need one crack in your boundary, one moment of hesitation, one reply, one flicker of hope you accidentally held onto. For them, that's all it takes to reboot the entire manipulation cycle. Because narcissists don't measure love by what they give, they measure it by how well they can control what you feel. And if you still feel anything for them, they'll keep believing you still belong to them. There's a harsh truth that needs to be said. Narcissists don't come back to rebuild, they come back to reclaim power. If you were once the one who reacted, the one who held on, the one who waited for acknowledgement, then, in their eyes, you're a door that can be reopened at any time, as long as they find the right emotional key. They might tell you you're the most special person they ever loved. They might pretend to be remorseful, saying, "No one ever understood me like you did." But don't forget, these are the same people who once made you doubt yourself, who silenced your voice, who trapped you in a cycle of hope and heartbreak. They don't miss you. They miss the control they once had when you were with them. And if you've ever asked yourself, why do they come back after all these years? The answer is simple. Because they believe you're still not strong enough to close that door for good. They believe time has softened you, that loneliness might make you forget why you had to walk away in the first place. So don't be surprised when they come back as if they never left. Don't be confused when they say, "My heart still belongs to you." And don't be moved when they try to prove they've changed. Because true change doesn't begin with a desire to come back. It begins with taking responsibility for what they've done. And that's something narcissists rarely, if ever, do. And if you've been through this, you'll know these signs never come all at once. They sneak in, subtle, scattered, unclear, and that's exactly what makes them dangerous, because a part of you still wants to believe in the good, still wants to think maybe they really have changed, still hopes, what if this time is different? And it's in that soft moment of hesitation that they walk back in, uninvited, unapologetic, assuming they still have the right. That's why the real question isn't just how do I know they're trying to come back, but rather, how do I make sure they never get the chance to? You can't control a narcissist's behavior, but you can control your reaction. And your reaction determines whether you fall back into the same trap or finally step out of that toxic cycle for good. This is when you need a full emotional defense system. Not just avoidance, but a powerful reassertion of your emotional sovereignty. First, let your silence be a declaration, not an invitation. Narcissists always interpret silence as a pause, not an end. They assume you're just waiting for the right moment to come back. So if you've chosen silence, hold it like armor. Don't text back. Don't be polite one last time. Don't convince yourself you need closure. Your silence isn't just how you walked away, it's how you reclaimed your mind after they spent so long trying to own it. Second, rewrite the truth in your own words, because the narcissist will try to rewrite the past, but you must never hand them the pen. When they come back, the feelings you once had can easily lead you to romanticize what really happened. That's why you need to write everything down, clearly, honestly, without sugarcoating. Remember the nights you cried alone, the moments you questioned your worth, the times you felt like a shadow next to them. Truth is the only thing that will keep you from falling back into the illusion. Third, draw boundaries that are non-negotiable and keep them. No just one reply. No just checking in to see how they're doing. Every time you leave a crack in the door, they'll try to walk all the way through. A narcissist doesn't need you to love them again, they just need you to respond. A simple text is an open invitation. A nostalgic post on social media is a signal to them that you still belong. Boundaries don't live in what you say, they live in what you consistently do. Fourth, build a system that protects you from emotional re-entry. Give yourself permission to be supported. Join a support group. Talk to a therapist. Connect with survivors like you. When someone listens to your story, reminds you why you left, and helps you name the manipulation, you'll feel less isolated and you'll be less likely to break under pressure. You are strong, but you don't have to be strong alone. And finally, turn your pain into your compass. No one walks away from someone they love without a heavy reason. Your pain wasn't meaningless. It was a map, a warning, a wake-up call you can't afford to ignore just because someone suddenly says they love you again. As Dr. Ramani once said, narcissists don't love you, they love the feeling of controlling you. Once you understand that, leaving them is no longer a decision. It's the only way to survive. If you've ever loved a narcissist, please forgive yourself. Not because you were weak, but because you loved deeply. Forgive the time you spent trying to save a relationship you were fighting for alone. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means stopping the punishment you've been giving yourself for something you never had control over. You didn't fall into their trap because you were naive. You fell in because they were skilled at disguising it. But today, you're awake. You're seeing what your heart once couldn't accept, and that is your power. You don't need them to complete you. You don't need distorted love to feel whole. You only need yourself, honest, steady and free. And if today you're still struggling with memories, please remember, you walked away once and you can walk forward again. The healing path is not a straight line. There will be days you miss them, days you feel weak, but let each step be a reminder. I chose myself, I chose truth, and I will not turn back for someone who never deserved to walk this road with me. If these words speak to your soul, please subscribe to the channel. Not because we have all the answers, but because we're walking this road with you, on the journey of finding yourself again, breaking free from manipulation, and building a life defined not by anyone else, but by you. Stay with us. The next videos won't just help you understand them, they'll help you learn to love yourself for the first time, the right way.